Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate that speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome everybody to RaceSpotTV for the conclusion of the Precision Racing League Formula D Series for 2024 Season 1. We're at the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. For the conclusion of the season, we will be crowning a champion and we will be getting to the end of what has been a pretty interesting season. My name's Reese Gardner with Lorenzo Bonder alongside me in the comms box. We have Dustin Ollis, of course, behind the scenes, pressing all the buttons and bringing you these live pictures. Looking forward to seeing how things go here at the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit, Lorenzo. It's a fun track, certainly interesting in any kind of race car. Looking forward to seeing what the racing brings.
Absolutely. I love Nurburgring. I think Nurburgring is one of these few tracks that has a very cool flow into it. You know, you have lots of elevation changes, mid to fast high corners with lots of deep braking zones. Especially over here, turn number 1 is a perfect example. And for some people, it might be a coronation drive since we know Jake Vasconcelos basically is your champion. And now the fight goes to the top 3. Who will get the top 3 spots at the end of this championship?
Absolutely. This is the season as it was. We started off at Road Atlanta and we absolutely ran the gamut of international circuits. 2 outings in Japan at Tsukuba and Okayama. We went to Australia last week at Mount Panorama Circuit, where there was quite an interesting sequence of events with our championship leader and many fast drivers ultimately having big issues or retiring, but now the Nurburgring Grand Prix plays host to the final round, and this is how things stand going into that last race of the season. Vasconcelos, of course, so far ahead of everyone else with drop rounds now applied that no one can catch him. That has been the case for a couple of rounds now. But Errol Urexoy has found himself in second place in the championship standings, and he'll be hoping that he at least goes to the finish, because the way points work in PRL, I think he'll be safe from James O'Brien, which has been the one of the second most successful drivers in this season, with 5 top 5s. Dave Peterson also visiting the top 5 times. Of course, Vasconcelos with the most wins of anyone. He has taken 5 wins so far. The only other drivers to take wins this season are James O'Brien, Tristan Callahan, and Kevin McPherson. Also part of the YS Motorsports squad, which leads the team standings. Third place in the team standings. My apologies. Vulture Motorsports, with drop rounds applied, has moved ahead to first place, and that is quite the gap over Viking Hot Rods Racing. Be interesting to see if YS Motorsports can overtake Viking Hot Rods for second place in the team's championship, but I'm thinking with the points gap might be a little bit hard to overcome, and I think there's a bit too much space between other teams in the standings for any big changes to be made in this final round, which is one more time brought to you by a great roster of sponsors here at the Precision Racing League, one of the largest online racing communities in the world. Of course, Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers, designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products. All you need to do is use the Precision5 coupon code at checkout. Go to advancedsimracing.com to check them out. We've also got Racebox Sim Racing, who offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com, and you can also get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Head to thebuttkicker.com. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. They're on all the socials. Go to moradness.com. They're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They have a Discord server as well. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. Go to mrhedge.co.uk. Mr. Hedge is also on Facebook and Instagram. And finally, we can't forget Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. They're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads. Well, we move into qualifying with the final round in full swing. Of course, sign-ups are open for 2024 Season 2. Formula D is continuing. And if you're interested in getting involved in this series, all you got to do is go to precisionracingleague.com. Register, sign up, have a race. It's a fun series. With 2 minutes left in qualifying, no surprise to see that Jake Vasconcelos is on pole position. Only by a tenth from Justin Delano, who's actually having a pretty good qualifying session right now. Yurt, Peterson, and Duhamel rounding out the top 5 of 8 cars that have set times so far.
Yeah, so we expect about, I would estimate 13 cars. Not the biggest grid we've seen this season compared to previous instances when we started this championship, but still a healthy grid. It's a healthy amount of cars, especially for a track, in my opinion, that flows well with this. This track is now Vasconcelos. It goes up and up and up his final lap. Just because that time will run out on them, race doesn't mean their chance is over. They can actually end their lap before they go to the race session, as there's still a few drivers still dabbling around the track and see what they're going to do best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a single race session, which means once the time hits 0, if you're on a lap, you can finish it. It looks like Zach Yurt is done with the session. So is Sean Duhamel in the Viking Hot Rods racing car. 3rd place right now, which is very good for Mr. Duhamel. Delano, meanwhile, looking to improve here. Vasconcelos is the next car on track behind him, so he'll be feeling the pressure. Only a 10th to make up for Delano if he wants pole position for the final round, but we know how quick Jake Vasconcelos is. As you mentioned, Lorenzo, it is a beautifully flowing circuit, this Nurburgring Grand Prix track. Certainly built for open wheelers, and it shows with some lovely corners, especially up this back half of the circuit. Very challenging to get corners like this left-hander right.
Yeah, and you think you might take this one way, but actually it's a certain way, another finicky way that you have to tackle around the track for you to get maximum time. This is what makes Nurburgring, I think, especially the back half of Nurburgring, so much difficult, because you have these very deep braking zones. Now you're going to see the GP chicane as time runs out here, Reese, and Vasconcelos' time looking really good so far.
It is indeed. Delano, ahead of him, is committed to pit entry. He is practicing the way into pit lane as Vasconcelos crosses the line. Is this an improvement? 158.15. It is indeed. He puts 3/10 on the rest of the field there. Beautiful job by our champion-elect. His teammate Kevin McPherson, meanwhile, is not going to set a lap time in the session. He's coming up to the final couple of corners, but he might have gotten an off track over the course of this lap. Actually, it's an out lap we're hearing, so no time for the second of the YS Motorsport cars. But McPherson is one of the quickest drivers in this series, so I'm looking to see him move up on the grid, which we're going through right now. Vasconcelos, of course, on pole position with Justin Delano alongside him on the front row for the standing start. Sean Duhamel and Zach Yurt are going to start 3rd and 4th, and then the other 2 Viking Hot Rods cars of Peterson and Olsen are on the 3rd row. Barry Cochran and Jason Arensberg are the other 2 drivers to set times in the qualifying session. McPherson starting in 10th. Then we got Urexoy 2nd place in the championship in 11th. David Hebert and Austin Harris are the other 2 cars in the server. Be interested to see if Harris takes to the grid. I'm expecting Hebert is going to be on there in 12th spot. So now we turn our attention to the opening turns here, Lorenzo. It's a difficult sequence to open the lap here with the Mercedes arena. Very tight hairpin to start the lap.
Yeah, it is one of the tightest hairpins because it isn't just downhill. It kind of makes the car bottom out if you go way too deeply, especially at the apex. So the reacceleration can be quite nifty. It can be very tricky for you to get out of the corner cleanly. And then you have 2 left-hand sections. So those left-hand sections can play easily into the balance of the car if you try to aim for something that would be medium to low downforce, just because you try to get that speed, right? So it makes things more difficult for them. So this is why I like this first sector. It's challenging, but I think if you find the right line, it isn't. I don't think it's as hard as the second sector is, right after the Michael Schumacher is, but it rewards you with so many good and close racing among everybody.
Reminder once again that if you're interested in racing in this series next season, 2024 Season 2 sign-ups are open. They will begin in the first week of the new iRacing season. Of course, week 13 is upon us in just a couple of days' time, with rain becoming a part of the action.
Oh, I'm loving the fact that we got rain coming up real soon.
For the Formula 4 car as well, which is the car that is raced in this series. So that's going to bring an extra little element of action to PRL Formula D. make sure to get yourself on the sign-up list as drivers are getting themselves onto the grid here for the race start. Very staggered Grand Prix grid here for the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. So if you're off the side there, you do want to grab the clutch. Make sure that you get things going very quickly. You'll get a nice run into the first turn. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting. Now I'll pose a question to you real quick before we got our race going. This layout, the GP layout or the WEC layout with the more wide-angle chicane?
I think for single-seaters, the slower chicane is better, but if you're racing literally anything else, I think the WEC chicane is a lot better, actually, the original configuration of that final chicane. I think, it's nice to have a bit of flow to end the lap, but for these cars, it provides an extra overtaking opportunity, another chance to make your way past a rival. Here we go then. It is time. The revs rise, and we get ready to go for PRL Formula D at the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. Green flag, and away we go. Good start from Vasconcelos, also a good start from Justin Delano. And it looks like everyone has managed to get a good start here, with that being very deep from Donald Olsen. Absolutely caught him out, as that's a spinner coming out of turn one. Delano from second place is now at the back of the grid, and there's a spin also for McPherson. Kevin around. That's unfortunate there. Wasn't able to get a time in qualifying, and the race is off to the worst possible start for him. So Vasconcelos, I don't think, is under much of a threat here, with Zach Yurt being promoted into second. The Viking Hot Rods trio rounding out the top five for the time being, but Jason Arensberg right on the back of Donald Olsen for that fifth place.
Yeah, and I really want to look on the replay. That send coming into turn number one and causing the contact with Delano. Delano fortunately got hit, I think, on the side panel, or the side part of his car, a little bit on the wheels too, so there wasn't too much damage on the 38 car, fortunately for him, so he can still carry on despite being heavily frustrated, with the crash already on lap one on turn one.
Yeah, certainly not what you want to see. Zach Yurt might potentially get a penalty post-race for that one, but he is on an absolute blinder right now. He's pressuring Jake Vasconcelos here in the opening laps. The tires are cold, the brakes are cold. We'll see what happens when everything gets up to temperature, because Vasconcelos' strength has been consistency in the lead. Meanwhile, looks like an incident further back. It's Barry Cochran that is very slow coming through the S's here. Looks like it was contact with Justin Delano.
Interesting. Want to look on the replay to see what happened.
Well, yeah, we'll see here. Zach Yurt, I think, missing the braking point for turn one, also having to take avoiding action there, gets into the side of Justin Delano and spins him around. And then we'll see McPherson get hit from the side there. I think that's what induced that spin for him. That's a real shame there in the opening corners of the lap. But regardless, there's still quite a bit of this race left to go and a mandatory pit stop. He was hit wide, and then he caught the grass, I think, on the way into turn two.
Yeah, and cold grass, the cold tires, then the grass, they don't mix well together. And like I said, the car's still trying to find its balance right there. We're going to look on the replay from Delano's perspective. I think Cochran just overshot the corner, and Delano got completely off guard by it.
Yeah, it looked like he was losing the rear end as well. Seems like there's already some damage there to Delano's car. I saw a little bit of right hand down coming into the corner there. Big shame. Delano has found his way past McPherson, and it looks like Kevin is trying to line him up for a move. So this is for the minor positions now, but not much else to be done for these two. And they will have to consolidate that position and make sure they have a clean race to the end. Speaking of racing, it's on for the lead. Jake Vasconcelos has not been able to get the gap here over Zach Yurt.
No, he's not. And breaking away over here, it takes a little bit more of the driver technique for you to, be more comfortable getting those turns right, getting the exit properly for you to break away. And you're doing a despite what transpired on turn 1, he's doing a fantastic job keeping the Yee's Motorsports at bay and making him drive as honestly as he can possibly drive for potentially 18 laps in this race.
Yep, and around the middle of the race, we'll see the pit stops. Remember, there is a fuel restriction at the start of the race, so drivers will have to come in to top up the fuel tank. With the racing being as close as it is, I think this is the first time in a while that the likes of Vasconcelos will really have to think about when he comes into the lane, because it seems like it's not a given that he's going to be taking the win to crown himself champion, and he's having some technical issues as well, which is certainly not going to help things.
Yeah, I think his mechanical problems on internet are getting into effect a little bit, but it looks like it is stabilized now. While he still tries to break away from your Duhamel and Peterson. The good thing about these cars is because they are low power, they carry some downforce. It makes the race look like pack racing, kind of like pack racing you would see in Indy cars and NASCAR. So it is nerve-wracking at points, but for spectators in general, when they look from the outside in, it makes good racing.
Yeah, it certainly does. And a little bit of slipstream down this section will certainly help out Sean Duhamel. It's flat out through the Schumacher S in these cars. Have to get on the brakes into fourth, maybe third gear for this sequence. View back from Vasconcelos shows that at least second place, the battle is starting to compress. I think Vasconcelos is gaining a tiny bit of time out of the corners on Zach Yurt, but he's picking up the slipstream in all the right places, and he seems very aggressive on the brakes. Kevin McPherson, meanwhile, starting to... oh no, actually he's towed back to the pits. That's unfortunate there. He just pulled over and stopped, so we've lost Kevin McPherson. I think he's decided that this round is going to be his one of his drops, and that's very unfortunate. Vasconcelos all alone in the race without a teammate to help him, though it could be argued that McPherson wasn't going to be much help from how far back he was. Meanwhile, change for position. Arensberg has to give up the place to James O'Brien coming into turn 1. O'Brien taking the win at the Mount Panorama circuit last round, taking advantage of crashes for everyone else. He's a bit lower down this time, but we know how quick he is.
Now we know that from the Sprint Cup, the NASCAR Sprint Cup series we commentate on Sundays, that he's a very capable driver when he drives his NASCAR around the oval tracks of iRacing for the private label Team Hype brand. So they're picking up the pace. Last lap, a 59.6, right around the mid pack. I think slightly lower than some of the people, but might be aided. Those people got faster laps, aided due to the draft around this track. So really doing a really solid job so far as number 33 car.
Yeah, the only driver to start the race other than Kevin McPherson, who did not set a qualifying time. Zach Yurt, meanwhile, suffering a bit for consistency here. He made a couple of mistakes on this lap. The left-right going down the hill, he locked up on the way in and ended up losing a bit of time to Vasconcelos. Now he's under a lot of pressure from the Viking Hot Rod trio.
Yeah, and the problem is going to be, try to defend not just one, but three. If we in team racing, we know those traditional things of, if you go for one, you go for three. There you go, getting outside of the Dunlop hairpin, and whenever you catch that send a little bit, you lose some time. So you just allow everybody else in the back to come through and closer. So that means this is Vasconcelos easily the best opportunity off the race for him to break away, and he's doing that. He's capitalizing. Well, fastest lap for the number 10.
Yep, that is a 2.2 second lead, which is enough that there's going to be no slipstream, or at the very least, too little to do something with for everyone behind. So I think the goal now for Yurt and everyone behind him, consolidate, maybe even work together to try and catch up to Vasconcelos, but that is way easier said than done. Once Jake gets up to speed, he is nigh unbeatable, unless, of course, he makes a mistake.
Yeah, he is. If you look on the lap times, if Dustin can bring us up the last lap times, you're gonna see the disparity of things. It's kind of like seeing Max Verstappen on his race pace over here on free practice too. He was doing basically half a second faster than anybody. Well, Jake just decided, well, I'm doing 2 seconds faster than anybody else in this lap. Bar Delano.
Yeah, indeed. Justin Delano was the second fastest car out there, but he is all on his own and probably carrying some damage besides. It's another issue for Zach Yurt in the middle part of the lap, and he has to go defensive now versus Sean Duhamel. You can take the outside line in this corner, but Duhamel on the brakes and turning in just maybe a little too late. The track's also still very slippery right now. Not much rubber's been laid down, so can't quite go side by side through those corners yet. But he's picking up the slipstream on the way down to the chicane. Already defensive from Zach Yurt. He knows that he's under attack, and there are two teammates going to be helping Sean Duhamel out if there's any hint of a mistake from Yurt.
Yeah, and if Yurt makes one slight blunder, it brings not just one, but three, and you know, if you lose one, you just open the door for everybody else, and just becomes way problematic for Yurt to contend with. And we still have more than a half of this race left to go, and they still have to contend with pit stops. If I'm Yurt, if you're hurting for time, if you're struggling for time, I want to say it's not a bad thing for you to do a pit stop. You know, catch your opponent off guard a little bit, try something different. That might work out of your way just fine. So looking forward to see what happens in the next few laps. As now O'Brien caught up to the Vulture, to the Vikings team.
Yeah, he certainly has. He's become an element in this battle now, and he's lining it up here. Late turn in, get on the power earlier, and potentially have a run. Donald Olsen was able to get the grip on the exit, though, and keeps the gap for the time being. But, man, James O'Brien is looking very quick now once he's recovered from his unfortunate goings-on the first lap. It's close between Peterson and Olsen ahead as well for Viking Hot Rods. They've got to be careful not to get in each other's way too much, otherwise they will all cost themselves a position. We can't count Jason Arensberg out of this either at the bottom of the screen there. He is starting to catch up. He has got the draft. He's got a lot to play for here.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit complicated for Arensberg, but he's still within the draft range, so it's still just workable for the number 64 of Vulture Motorsports. So it's still, it might depend maybe on James and Donald Olsen maybe blundering their overtake opportunities more for O'Brien than Olsen per se. So and that would open up the opportunity for the 64 to come in. So looking forward to see what transpires in the next moments.
Yeah, you saw that O'Brien was thinking about a move there. He has lined up the chicane beautifully, and he's going to go for the inside at the final corner here. An overtaking opportunity, just like any other on this track, and room is given by Donald Olsen. Lets him go through, but outside line, straighter exit, as Vasconcelos is our first pitter in this race. Everyone's going to have to take a pit stop for fuel, and Vasconcelos has decided to get his out of the way nice and early. And there is the defense from James O'Brien, keeps Donald Olsen behind him for the time being.
Yeah, so Vasconcelos is going to just come right behind Delano, and I think this is interesting. You know, Vasconcelos already taking an early pit stop because you know that it's not going to be the longest pit stop in the eternity over here. The only thing that is kind of like long would be the run from pit lane all the way down from start to finish, where they would come up into turn number one. And the better thing is, I think he might actually aid on widening the gap to Duhamel, Peterson, O'Brien, Olsen, because they're not doing fastest times. They're on the 59s, where he's just flying around the track and he has clean track to do so.
Yeah, he's come out in a gap. It's a consequence, I think, of there not being very many cars in this field right now. 9 still running, with Kevin McPherson retiring early. On the other side of the coin, I think this provides a bit of an opportunity for Yurt to gain a bit of time with no one ahead of him. He might have been getting a little bit of aero disturbance from Vasconcelos, but the draft is so strong that he's facing a lot of pressure from behind still. And I'm seeing also the battle between O'Brien and Olsen. Look at this. Olsen picking up a great slipstream, and he's actually going to try and go for the move here at the chicane. Side by side, they avoid making contact, and, well, O'Brien will file through as two of the Viking Hot Rods cars make their way into the lane. Seems that Donald Olsen will not be able to follow his teammates in there.
Yeah, but I think this was the smart move from Peterson and Duhamel. You know, they're seeing their direct competition already pitting, and he's faster. You can even see on the background. There's Mr. Jay Vasconcelos about to do his lap. So the question is, how long of the gap he will create with just one out lap?
Looks like quite a bit, actually. You don't have to change tires in the pit stop, and in races as short as this, I don't think you would want to, especially considering how snappy these cars are on cold tires. Pit stops complete for Duhamel, Peterson, and Delano. Looks like Duhamel had the longest pit stop of anyone, but Dave Peterson had the longest trip through the lane at about 23.5 seconds. Justin Delano, meanwhile, with only 23 seconds flat through the pit lane. Unfortunately, that hasn't given him much in the way of positions. It's actually spaced out the cars even more as they've made their way out of the lane. So now we wait and see what the likes of Yurt, O'Brien, Ahrensberg, and Olsen do. I would expect them to respond on this lap. The number 84, all on his own out here at the front of the field. He'll have to nail this coming into the lane. Bit of a more direct line to the inside there for O'Brien as well. I'm not sure if that's the best way to take that flat-out kink. But you can see that they've all got the chicane sorted nicely. Avoiding the pits is Zach Yurt for the time being, and it looks like the same is true for O'Brien and Ahrensberg. Olsen, meanwhile, is going to commit to the pit lane. We'll see where he comes out relative to his teammates.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting just to the fact that he might have lost time to their teammates and maybe lose the draft range. And I think losing the draft range for Olsen would be the worst case scenario, because it would make himself more of an easy target to the other guys around the track. Just how O'Brien and Yurt and eventually Ahrensberg as well are coping with this. Their lap times are not fast. They're about 1 minute 59 to 2 minutes, so it gives a chance to also maybe to fight back and still be within contention for a potential top 5 finish.
Well, he's come out of the lane, and wow, he is actually quite a long way behind. He's come out 6 seconds behind Justin Delano. Olsen did not have a very good trip through the lane there, it seems.
Yep.
Seems like he's having some issues with the rear end on the outlap as well.
Yeah, but and it is just a natural thing of the car. You know, you come out, the tires cool down a little bit, maybe because you got a little bit more fuel. The car gets slightly heavier with the worn tires. You know, just readapting to the track itself and building up that heat might become a little bit of a problem. But nevertheless, it's things that the drivers deal on a daily basis. You just might have caught them by complete surprise.
Yeah, potentially. Well, our top 3 plus Barry Cochran are the only ones left to make their pit stops so far. It seems like early pit stops are the way of the day here at the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. We've usually seen around about the halfway point is when people start coming into the lane, but I think Vasconcelos throwing the wild card and getting into the pits nice and early took them by surprise. I think now the only option for a response from Yurt, O'Brien, and Ahrensberg is to stay out as long as they possibly can. You'd have to try something different if you want any chance of still being in contention for the win here.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm starting to think if you're thinking about win, maybe redirect that thought, because the way that Vasconcelos is driving is just unnatural. The only guy that is actually being able to do something I think on a true pace might be Delano, but even then Delano is not being way too quicker, and he had the issue on lap 1. O'Brien did a 58.4 right now on this lap. I think this is his personal best, but it's still not enough on what Vasconcelos is putting on a lap-by-lap basis.
Yeah, Vasconcelos still holds the fastest lap of the race, and his last lap was only a 10th slower than that. He's the only driver running in the 1 minute 58-second bracket down on the low end. O'Brien and Peterson both running 158.8, Justin Delano 158.9 on the last lap. So right now on pure pace, Vasconcelos is unbeatable. So the only thing I think that the other drivers are going to be hoping for is a mistake from our champion-elect. He's keeping it nice and clean through the second half of the lap as we keep an eye on Zach Yurt, seeing some tire tracks through the gravel there. It looks like someone had an issue there earlier. Clobber the curbs on the way through the Grand Prix chicane. Still no response on the pit lane either. They're committing to running the tank out right, hoping that they'll have a bit more running with a light car and maybe getting some time back. 159.90 for Zach Yurt, 158.6 for James O'Brien, gaining time on Jason Aaron's codes into the lane. Give up the position of Jake Vasconcelos very shortly here. There's Vasconcelos exiting the final corner. No, actually, Vasconcelos already passed him. And going into turn 1, it was the Viking hot rod duo of Duhamel and Peterson I was looking at there. So Vasconcelos back up to P3. Jason Aaronsberg sets a 4.3 second stop, and he has lost out big time to Duhamel, Peterson, and Delano.
Yeah, so I thought Ironsberg would be closer to Delano, but that is not the case. But what impresses me is the fact that both Viking guys are close to one another, and O'Brien can actually, you know, from my perspective, they're still yet to pit, so he's going to lose the position. But I think as the lap goes on by, he might have a slight chance, you know, of catching them back as the clock stools run out, and we're past halfway mark of this race.
Yep, under 14 minutes to go. It's a 35-minute race in PRL Formula D, with now the battle for fourth starting to gear up a bit, with Duhamel and Peterson battling each other for the title of quickest Viking hot rods racer. Catch a little bit of slipstream through the Schumacher S, try and gain some time. The braking zone, very difficult to line up for this corner, which is a little bit faster than it looks. It's very easy to make a mistake in this very fast S-bend onto the back stretch, I suppose you could call it, of the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. Still, Zach Yurt and James O'Brien avoid the pit lane, and O'Brien is starting to gain on Yurt. 159.1 for Yurt, 158.69 for James O'Brien. He is looking very quick there in the battle for effective second place.
I'm liking what this battle is bringing so far, but I'm getting total distance, Seth. From my perspective over here, Reese, and from the way this race is going, they're not gonna need a lot of time in the pit lane from what it looks like. Of course, the more time you get is staying in the road, the last time you eventually will have to be in the pit lane. So the question becomes on can they come closer to Duhamel? In my opinion, the gap might actually extend to about 2 seconds, 2 to 3 seconds, just if it goes on my lone thought of they staying about total time 20 seconds in the pit lane.
Yeah, I think the gap that Vasconcelos is going to have when these guys take their pit stop is going to be insurmountable at this point. So I think that's why we're seeing James O'Brien really starting to pressure Zach Yurt. You saw how aggressive he was on the brakes coming into the southern hairpin. certainly looks very confident on the stop pedal and carrying a lot of speed through these medium speed corners as well. Of course, the series is fixed setup, so there's not much drivers can do to alter their car behavior through the corners other than changing the brake bias. But seems like James O'Brien has gotten into the rhythm after that very rough start. Line astern on the way through the chicane they come. Do they commit to the lane this time? Well, Yurt's going to, but James O'Brien is going to stay out for at least one more lap.
Risky strat, but knowing the private label team hype guys, they like to do these kind of risky strats. So just my question is, will it pay off? I really don't know. His pace looks really good. 58.6 is his lap, going to on lap 12. But the thing is, I don't think that is enough for him to even think about maybe top 5.
No, I don't think so. Zach Yurt pitting late. It doesn't look like it's actually going to help him much. That's a very long pit stop there for Zach Yurt. Is it a penalty? It is. He's got a black flag. He entered pit lane too quickly and he's out of the car. Zach Yurt retires from the final round of PRL Formula D for 2024 Season 1. That is massive.
And that's... I'm trying to find the best way to define the situation. Hurtful. I think that's the best way. I think I can define this, you know. Especially this late in the race, you're doing a really good result.
Oh, so apparently his pit limiter didn't turn on. So you slow down for the lane, you get to the limiter line, the pit limiter doesn't turn on, and then he accelerates. He tries to stay at the pit limit, but then realizes it's not on. He's accelerated way past the pit lane speed limit. So I think from that point on, it was all over Red Rover for the very unfortunate Zach Yurt. So second place was already lost at that point. And I think he decided, look, it's the final round of the season. I might as well call it a night from here.
Well, he's back in the track.
Oh, is he?
No, he's not.
He's not. Well, James O'Brien will come into the lane and cleanse the field, everyone having taken their visit to the pit lane for this race. But I don't think there's going to be anyone battling with him from here on out. Vasconcelos 8 seconds behind. And, well, the time ticks down and our champion-elect moves back into the race lead. It is going to be a very dominant race for him. Spinning up the wheels on the way out of the lane for James O'Brien. And he's going to come out ahead of the Viking Hot Rod cars, as well as Justin Delano, who's going for the move now on Dave Peterson. Room is given on the inside, but sometimes the outside is where you want to be. And turn 1 at the Nurburgring is one of those places. However, outside for turn 2, this is going to be tough here. He's boxed in, is Justin Delano. That is teamwork there from the Viking Hot Rod cars. And oh dear, it all comes to a head. Dave Peterson gets spun by Justin Delano coming out of the Mercedes arena.
It's unfortunate, you know. I said they could get close racing around the first sector, or the first half of the track, especially going around these corners, the full Mercedes-Benz arena sector. So we expected Delano to make some moves, make some strides, but unfortunate to see that kind of content. I want to look on the replay if something else was the catalyst of all this, if there was like some air around it, or if it was just pure aggressiveness that led to contact.
Yeah, well, tries to move up the inside here, and look, he was trying to widen the way into the right-hander, wasn't he, to get the best run, but committing to the inside, committing to the apex was the Viking Hot Rods car. The door just closed. It's a real shame to see.
Unfortunate.
Well, that will conclude things in the battle for the time being, but it could still be on here for second place. Oh no, that's a big spin there for Jason Arensberg. He was trying to get the move done on Dave Peterson, but unfortunately the rear end went, which is something we've seen all season. Drivers having a lot of trouble keeping the rear end in check. Looks like a lockup actually on the front on the way in, and he tried to slow it down, and then the weight shifted away from the rear, and there wasn't much he could do to recover from that. Oh dear.
James O'Brien?
James O'Brien. Turn 1 incident there. He has lost second place. And now down to 4th. How did that happen for him? Just at the... Oh, it's the compression. The compression through the first turn. Yep.
Yeah, I told you the risk about maybe bottoming out the car or something like that. When you go into the compression of that turn number 1, because there's no ground clearance that the car making around the corner completely. And if you think, oh, that's happens in Formula cars, no, that happens in any car. If you put like a GT3 car, that is going to happen. If you put it like on a GTP, that is going to happen. It is just because the cars don't have ground clearance or the ride height enough to avoid that massive depression.
Yeah, that's one of the many issues you face around this racetrack. Well, what that's done is it's demoted O'Brien back to 4th, and he'll have to try and keep Dave Peterson behind him now. Jake Vasconcelos enjoying a 9-second lead over Sean Duhamel, who's, I think, happy that he's found himself in that position. Justin Delano up into 3rd. The question is, can O'Brien keep Peterson behind him? The tyres would have been overheated a little bit thanks to that spin. He'll have to bring the temperature back under control, back down to the optimum operating temperatures and pressures. But I think with how quick we've seen O'Brien be, he'll probably only need a lap or so to get back up to speed. Got to keep an eye on how much the rear end is playing in the final corner though. And looks like he's managed to get it under control now. So, take 2. Let's see if he manages to get through turn 1 cleanly this time.
Yeah. More important, more interesting for me is the fact that we know Urexo is not even featuring this track. I think he's going to get a DNS, so he has already another DNS in the season. He had this in round 6 when they went and drove around Silverstone, so that's one of his jump points. And O'Brien's gap is about 19 points, so every point they can get basically pinpoints it into P2 of the championship. I don't think that is going to be enough for Urexo to retain that P2. Question is if it's Ahrensberg's momentum over here, or even Peterson's momentum might shift away from Ahrensberg and make sure that Peterson becomes top P3, or even Peterson becomes P3 in the championship, drop points included.
It'll be interesting to see how the championship is affected after the race, considering how many big spins we've seen from drivers who are usually very competitive in this series. Well, 3.5 minutes already well past, and I think we're going to have 2 laps to go after this. So Jake Vasconcelos, all he needs to do up ahead is keep it clean, keep it consistent out of the final corner to take the 2 laps to go call from his spotter. And the gap has come down just a little bit. Sean Duhamel now bringing it down to about 8 seconds. But I think for Vasconcelos, all he's doing is just driving at like 85 to 90%. He knows that he has the gap to work with. He doesn't need to be pushing hard for the fastest lap still. He already has it.
Oh, nobody's going to take that away from him.
No. No pressure at all. So just bring it home from here. The closest fight on track currently is between Jason Ahrensberg and Donald Olsen for 6th place. Ahrensberg obviously facing his fair share of issues tonight, including that spin at the chicane just a few moments ago. Olsen keeping him honest here. Arensberg actually running a little bit slower. You're interested to see what Barry Cochrane can do as well. We haven't seen much of Barry in the 7-Eleven in this race, but he's on the periphery of the battle for 6th place. If there's a mistake for either Arensberg or Olsen, then he'll certainly be able to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still looking to see if Cochrane can take an opportunity of doing something. The thing is, can also reach Arensberg in time. He's going to have basically 1.5 laps to reach Arensberg. It looks like Olsen's car is looking really good on this race, so that's why he's being able to catch Arensberg, and his corner entry looks really solid. It's just a matter of can he capitalize on the momentum of having a really good car for one more lap and do the overtake as Vasconcelos opens the final lap here, Reese.
He does indeed. White flag for Vasconcelos, and it's only 5.15 kilometers left to officially be crowned the champion of PRL Formula D for 2024 Season 1. Arensberg versus Barry Cochrane now. Versus Donald Olsen, my apologies. Barry Cochrane still on the outside looking in for this battle. The slipstream has been picked up here for Donald Olsen. I don't think he'll be able to make a move at turn 1, but he'll certainly be aggressive on the brakes and try to get a little bit closer. That's a bit too narrow on the way into the first turn there. Might have lost out slightly. He'll have to wait for an opportunity potentially at the southern tip of the circuit for a proper run here. Technical issues still abounding for the Viking Hot Rods racing driver, and he is all over the back of Jason Arensberg. Going to be moving around in the mirrors, potentially psyching out the number 64. It is on here for 6th place. It's almost on for 2nd as well, with Justin Delano starting to gain on Sean Duhamel. They've just made their way through the southern hairpin. Looks like the battle for 6th has calmed down for the time being. Is there going to be any move to be made coming into these final corners of the lap? The gap has increased for Jake Vasconcelos to 10 seconds, so there's nothing for these drivers to fight for in terms of the win, but Duhamel will be feeling the pressure here. Could be a 2nd place on the board for Viking Hot Rods Racing. And, well, one more mistake for Jake Vasconcelos at the chicane, but only 1 turn left. He's already hit the apex of the final corner, and checkered flag will fly. And officially, Jake Vasconcelos is your champion of PRL Formula D with another dominant drive. That is a massive, massive lead he ended up getting. Meanwhile, Duhamel manages to keep Justin Delano behind him for 2nd place. It's still on for 6th here. Arensberg defensive into the final corner. Donald Olsen can't do anything to overcome him, so has to settle for 7th place across the line.
Yeah.
And that's going to bring things to an end there with Barry Cochrane crossing the line in 8th, and the victory celebrations begin twofold for YS Motorsports as Jake Vasconcelos laying down that rubber. He doesn't need it anymore. He has used that rubber to its full potential here. Fantastic stuff as we go through our unofficial results from the final round of PRL Formula D at the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. Vasconcelos by 8.9 seconds takes the win over Duhamel and Delano, with O'Brien and Peterson rounding out the top 5. Jason Arensberg in 6th with Donald Olsen 7th. Barry Cochrane was the last driver to cross the line in 8th. Zach Yert, unfortunately, 6 laps from the end with the unfortunate pit limiter incident, retires, as well as Kevin McPherson. Ilya Rexoy, David Hebert, and Austin Harris did not take to the start. So no points for them here. May very well be a drop, and they could potentially gain some points from that. We will have to wait and see for the official championship standings post-race. And that is basically it. We're going to wait for our drivers to jump into the interview booth, Lorenzo, and we can have a chat to them. But good way to end the season for Vasconcelos. You know, he made mistakes on occasion, like everyone else did in this series, but he made the least of them, and he was easily the quickest driver.
Yeah, easily. But I think a long margin on everybody else. 6 wins in the whole season. If we have basically 66% or 2/3 of the championship where his wins dominated the championship and gave no lead to anybody else to have a chance winning this race. There was a few times they got close, but nevertheless capitalized it with a resounding season. I think one of the most dominant seasons ever that we've seen here at PRL, regardless of whichever championship we ever commentated on.
Yeah, well, if you want to try and bring the fight to Vasconcelos next season, you can sign up for 2024 Season 2. Sign-ups open not just for Formula D, but for every PRL series. They run the gamut of racing, single-seaters, sports car racing. They have it all on the oval side as well. Don't forget that they have a Super Formula series starting next season, which we're going to be broadcasting here on RaceSpotTV. So if you're interested in some Japanese open wheeler action, make sure to get your sign-ups in. Oval, road, you are catered for at the Precision Racing League. And it looks like we have Jake Vasconcelos in the interview booth, getting ready now for the chat. And I think it is time to interview our champion, Vasconcelos, with us now. It looked like a pretty easy race for you in the end, Jake, but it didn't look so simple at the start.
Yeah, I was taking my time at the beginning there, and I just put the jets on.
Yeah, what do you think turned on the jets? Was it just a case of making sure the tires were up to temperature before you started pushing?
Yeah, pretty much. I did 2 other races before, and I didn't have a good first lap because I didn't wait long enough for the tires, so I just took it slow for a couple laps and then did my thing.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting season for PRL Formula D this season. You had some close competitors, but I think all of them dropped off towards the end. Yeah,
there were definitely a couple others that were a little more fun to race, and they aren't with us anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, big shame, but still, you must be happy with your performance this season. Of course, not without the occasional mistake, but I think in this series it was defined by who made the least mistakes. Yeah,
for sure. I've done a few other PRL sessions, and I've learned a lot, and it's nice to take home the championship on this one.
What are your plans for 2024 Season 2? Are you going to be staying in Formula D or expanding your horizons a bit?
I would, because it is free this time around, but I'm doing Super Formula, which is right after that time slot, so I'll be practicing Super Formula.
All right, I'm looking forward to seeing how you and the YS Motorsports crew do in the Super Formula Series next season, Jake. Big thanks for joining us, and congratulations once again on the 2024 Season 1 title.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to thank all my friends and family that made this possible, and YS Motorsports and Kevin, and PRO for the league, and you guys at RaceSpot for the coverage. Appreciate it. You guys do a good job.
Thanks very much. Jake Vasconcelos there, taking home the title, Lorenzo, and it looks like that's all we're going to have time for. We don't see anyone else in the interview booth. So the end of the season then. And remember that Formula D is continuing next season, but it seems like a lot of the drivers here are hyped for Super Formula.
Yeah, it's a really good car. I love the car. I drove it in a few instances. I know this weekend's in Suzuka, and it's one of my favorite combinations. I drove this, I think, last season. Had a full-on blast driving the Honda engine, not the Toyota engine. Don't at me, by the way, just because I like the Honda more than the Toyota does. The noise, nevertheless, is beefy. I like them. It's going to be quite interesting to see how they negotiate the tracks around iRacing, and can't wait to see how they're going to be, balancing, both this series and the Formula D series.
Indeed. Well, one more time. 2024 Season 2 sign-ups are open, and as Vasconcelos said, Formula D is free to enter. So if you want to have a go at racing in the PRL, make sure to get your sign-up in. Register at precisionracingleague.com, and you will find all the information you need on the forums as well as on their official website. Big thanks for joining us over the course of this 2024 Season 1 coverage here on RaceSpotTV. We certainly hope that you've enjoyed the shows. We want to thank the drivers and Precision Racing League as well as all of their sponsors for bringing us this action here in the first part of the new year. Big thanks once again. I'm Reese Gardner, Lorenzo Bonda with me in the comms box, and Dustin Ollis behind the scenes here on RaceSpotTV. We'll see you next time.